Hi, I'm George Dahl, and welcome to my film journal. Today we're talking about the 16th entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Black Panther, directed by Ryan Coogler of Creed and Fruitvale Station.
The revolution will not be televised.
Show me my respect and bow down. We own ya, we own ya. We only getting started now, cause we own ya. Everybody think they know me now, cause we own ya. You and I'm a homie now, cause we own ya.
So, Black Panther. We've seen a lot of outrage on both sides. People are going crazy.
Crazy liberal psychos, and they were white people, in fact, saying, white people, stay the fuck out of the theater while while Black Panther is out. Don't steal their joy with your white privilege.
Oh my God.
I literally saw something along those lines.
It's making a lot of people feel great, and it's something that black folks have never had the opportunity to see ourselves look like on film.
You don't know nothing about Marvel. All of a sudden now you the biggest fan. Fuck up out of here. Where was the support for Luke Cage? Where was the support for Blade? Do not pull up. I'm showing.
Okay, Wakanda is where it is. This is the most important moment in Black American history. Not Martin Luther King, not Frederick Douglass, not the Civil War, not the end of Jim Crow.
Kind of scale in America.
Not Brown
Are
versus
there
Board.
right-wing racists online who love to start racist memes?
Marvel doing the cinematic universe, and it's time for Black Panther's turn. And it looks pretty chill, and it's like, yo, that's it. You don't need to read into it any more than that. But people are trying to. They're trying to make it.
Both extremes, I think, are a little outrageous, but I kind of like to sit in and watch the chaos happen. For a few reasons. Number one, I'm really glad that movies have entered the topical discourse again. I listened to plenty of political podcasts, and Black Panther came up on every episode. And not just in sort of a miscellaneous way to talk about the current racial climate, but they really discuss the film and its themes. So it's kind of powerful that a wacky comic book idea that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby thought of in 1966 still has like the story power to captivate all these many people, because at the end of the day, the story, the origin of Black Panther when he appeared in Fantastic Four, it's very, very similar to the film. They really stayed true to the story. So let's talk about Black Panther's first appearance in Fantastic Four, because I think it gets to the root of the problem of the political outrage and craziness on both sides. So Black Panther is a character that appeared in Fantastic Four 33, I think. I have the collected volume Marvel Masterwork. It's in the 6th volume. And the Fantastic Four is called over to Africa by a mysterious stranger, and they are ambushed by the Black Panther. And he outmaneuvers and outperforms and defeats the Fantastic Four inside of his lair in Wakanda. And he finally reveals himself to actually be a friend. And then in retrospect, a sort of convoluted answer for their battle is constructed by the writer. In this case, Black Panther explains, I am the heir to T'Chaka. My name is T'Challa. I live here in Wakanda. It's a secret African country that has been hidden because we have a giant meteorite of vibranium. And I wanted to test my skills against you, Fantastic Four, because we've been living here in isolation for so long, and I know that Ulysses Klaue, the man who killed my father, who's been trying to terrorize our tribe and steal our wealth, is coming back, and more powerful this time with more men, and I wanted to make sure that I was trained. Klaue does return. He's got the same Captain Ahab beard that Andy Serkis is sporting in this movie, though he's not as cool. He wears kind of a lame pith helmet and looks like a reject from a Tales to Astonish comic. His first appearance with this fight is the one that gets reprinted a lot. It's actually reprinted at the end of Ta-Nehisi Coates' Volume 1 of Black Panther, to sort of thicken the book, because it's only the first 4 issues if you buy Volume 1. Obviously, Marvel was trying to capitalize on the name of a famous author, and they wanted to get that book out in collected edition as fast as possible. But where the story really gets interesting is in Black Panther's second appearance in the following issue, which hardly anybody cares to talk about, because they only are talking about his first appearance. Surprisingly enough, at the end of the story, Black Panther realizes that in his relationship with the Fantastic Four that he should open up Wakanda to the rest of the world, and he should come out, and I'm going to be a superhero for everybody, which is strikingly similar to how the story in Ryan Coogler's film goes. So let's start with the original sin of this movie. Many people on the alt-right are lambasting it and having a great time making fun of Wakanda because it is what they call a black ethno-state with no immigration and closed borders, which is similar to what people like Richard Spencer want for the United States or Europe, that it be a white ethno-state with closed borders.
To a certain degree, you know, what some people in Wakanda are espousing is that isolationist, more Trumpian policy of no, just keep it to ourselves. We know there's poverty and tribulation just outside our borders, but if we open up, then we're going to get diluted, or people are going to take what we have. That is, from a human perspective, totally understandable, because every human being wants to look after themselves, and every human being puts themselves first.
So a lot of people who are sympathetic to the alt-right, like I'm talking like Stephen Molyneux, who released the secret truth of Black Panther, right? And he talks about how this is sort of contradictory for the left and the Black Lives Matter movement to claim this movie as sort of an ideological paradise of black culture, when in actuality it's something that Richard Spencer would gladly support. None of these things were going around in the minds of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby when they were creating a comic. And this is why I think that Ta-Nehisi Coates' recent run is somewhere where they should definitely take the sequel. Because his run on the books does ask a lot of questions about what is the political nature of Wakanda, how can we read a comic book in the 21st century and support a character who is a king? He's a monarch. Is it a democracy? It's kind of sketchy. So the story is all about there's an uprising of workers in Wakanda, and the Black Panther sort of has to mend his ways and sort of relinquish power and open up the country to be a more democratic state in keeping with sort of our values in the 21st century. Because a lot of people cringe when they hear the word monarchy. People on the sort of liberal side of the perspective, the Black Lives Matter types, are just absolutely heaping praise on this film. And I think a lot of people caught up in the middle who are, involved in the zeitgeist end up placating them and saying, yeah, this is a really great film. But I have seen some outrageous tweets about the importance of this movie, outrageous hot takes and articles on Huffington Post, people just going nuts for the film. Of course, it's brought up a lot of positive conversations, I think, too, like listen to the Fifth Column podcast this week. And they have a little debate between Michael Moynihan, Camille Foster, Matt Welch about whether or not representation is important in films, which I think that it is. I think it's really awesome that a Marvel movie is grabbing attention again, because just when you think that the formula is maybe getting tired, they revitalized it with Thor Ragnarok, which is a film which I was not, I liked it a lot, but I wasn't the hugest fan. I thought that it was a little too much, it told too many jokes at the expense of itself. And just when you think that these movies are just becoming a sort of cartoon parody and just a roller coaster action ride, a movie like Black Panther comes out, which is a pretty thoughtful film. I would not heap praises on it, the likes of which we're seeing in the media, that it's one of the best superhero films ever made, that it's a game changer. It's really no Dark Knight. It follows the Marvel formula. It has the standard Marvel look. It has the standard overwrought chase sequences, and for the most part, the action in the film is pretty poor. But what I think is the real strength of the movie is Ryan Coogler and his consistent vision for the film all the way through. The movie starts out with a question. Should Wakanda stay isolated? Should it still support its own and not reach out to the outside world? And by the end of the film, through the actions of the villain, that question is answered. This is not something that happens a lot in Marvel films. Usually it's superhero gains power and superhero must defeat villain, who's somehow tangential to his getting power too. They sort of both rise at the same time, and one conquers. Now this time we have Michael B. Jordan, who is the orphaned cousin of T'Challa. And when he arrives, he causes a seismic shift in the culture. He brings new, dangerous ideas to Wakanda. Not only should they open up, but they should use their technology to seize control of the world and they're going to start over. And this time, they'll be on top. So he's sort of a black supremacist in that way, where he says, we're going to right all of the wrongs of history, that when the New World Order is established, that black people are on top and our former oppressors are on the bottom.
The world's gonna start over. I'm gonna be on top. What do you want? I want the throne.
Obviously, this worldview proves too extreme for Black Panther, who is a moderate leader, and he arrives and defeats Eric in the film's climax. Unfortunately for T'Challa, his cousin, Eric, is the more compelling character of the two. He's got real conviction, whereas T'Challa is just sort of wishy-washy. He's a proud, strong, and chivalrous guy, but he's sort of adrift after his father's death. He has no real guiding principle. He just sort of follows in the path of former kings before him. So by the end of the film, he makes a choice, but it's nowhere near as interesting as the sermonizing we get from Eric and his plight. In actuality, I think the movie is actually kind of a conservative film with a lot of interesting ideas about tradition and the importance of family and culture, because in the film, I think it's very interesting to note, and the only time rap music is played is when Eric Killmonger and the villains are around. Rap music is sort of his theme, and there's a wonderful score to the movie. And every time you hear rap music, it denotes the entrance of sort of a presence that shouldn't exist. It's almost like the Wakandans, who are sort of stilted Star Wars prequel-esque characters, and the visual design and green screen work that brings Wakanda to life doesn't do anything to nullify those comparisons.
Crow has escaped our pursuits for almost 30 years. Not capturing him is perhaps my father's greatest regret. I wish to bring Crow back here to stand trial.
Wakanda does not need a warrior right now. We need a king.
My parents were killed when he attacked. Not a day goes by when I do not think about what Claw took from us.
What about the droid attack on the Wookiees?
And when Michael B. Jordan shows up, he's an unwelcome presence. I just don't think that Tupac Shakur would be welcome in the Huxtables' living room, and you get the same feeling when you're watching the movie. And the film does pay a certain amount of attention to Michael B. Jordan, who is just, like, terrific in this movie. He was great in Creed. I really liked him. But in this movie, he really shines as he's up there with the best villains of the Marvel Universe, which isn't saying much, but the movie really does villains right because it ties the villain's motivation into the central theme of the film, which is really effective. He's not just a bad guy who shows up. So he plays a character called Killmonger. And he's referred to as Killmonger in sort of that offhand way that comic books movies usually do to avoid the embarrassment of their roots. I call this it looks like some kind of Hulk moment, in which movies sort of offhandedly address the name of the villain so they can throw that little tidbit out there for the nerds, but they don't want to embarrass themselves by actually having the superhero go, I am Hulk, right? This happened in the Iron Man films. In the first one when Jeff Bridges, who's playing Obadiah Stane, Ironmonger in the comics, just has an offhand line where he goes, we're ironmongers, Tony, and then wink to people like me, but we don't want to actually have him come out and say, I am Ironmonger. That would just be too much for the regular discerning viewers in the audience. And it happens again in Iron Man 2, I think, when Rhodey and Tony are fighting. Rather than come out and say, Tony, I'm here, I'm War Machine, Tony throws out like a little offhand line about it.
We don't have to do this, Tony.
You want to be the War Machine? Take your shot.
Put it down!
I'm actually really surprised that there wasn't more hay being made about the name Black Panther itself. And actually, obviously, as it brings images forth of the Black Panther militia group of the 1960s. This was actually a problem that Stan Lee confronted in the 60s when the Black Panther group started getting media attention, and here they were with this character that it predated the group. So they changed his name temporarily to the Black Leopard, and he gives a little lawyer's diatribe in the comic about why he changed his name, but it doesn't really work, and they went back to the former moniker that works so well. I'm surprised there were no sort of people on the right-wing side decrying this film as being an obvious supporter of the Black Panther Party. We had a similar situation of this happening with Rush Limbaugh when he hilariously insinuated that the choice of Batman's adversary for the third Batman film, Bane, was a brazenly overt allusion to Mitt Romney's former place of employment, Bain Capital, and he was very upset about this.
The villain in The Dark Knight Rises is named Bane. B-A-N-E. What is the name of the venture capital firm that Romney ran and around which there's now this make-believe controversy? Bane.
Aesthetically, the film is really nice. The performances are great. The movie, you can think of it sort of as like Thor in Africa, because there's similar dynamics here. With T'Challa, you can think of him as Thor. His father is obviously gone, but he's still a large presence like Odin. He has a whole assembled cast of characters that live in this kingdom. His sister, his mother, his girlfriend, his best friend, all the members of the council of the city. And it reminds you a lot of Asgard, only this movie gives the other ancillary characters a lot more to do. And they sort of have real personality, and they get to come along on the adventure. They're not just fodder to be, thrown in for a joke and then finally killed in the third installment. Unlike Rene Russo in Thor, who played Frigga, she gets her moment in the sun. It isn't just sort of a background prop because she has to be there. Thor's got to have a mom, right? There she is, right? The characters make interesting choices. I liked the idea of making Black Panther not only a kick-ass superhero king, but he's sort of a James Bond character too, with his sister serving in the Q role. There was a lot of shading of Skyfall there. I mean, the entrance into the South Korean casino is strikingly similar to the Macau sequence in Skyfall. I mean, the movie that was, I mean, just a blatant sort of copy of that scene. You know, a secret meeting, people exchanging briefcases, people communicating to each other via earpiece and being secretive in the area. I mean, it was kind of surprising. The performances are very, very good. Andy Serkis as Ulysses Claw here, the villain. Who sort of the rather short-lived but explosive and fun villain. He's great here. Looks like he's having the time of his life. Apparently Disney only give him contracts for 2 films at a time, saying that they killed him off in Star Wars and then killed him off again in this. One of the things I really liked about Spider-Man Homecoming was that it didn't feel the need to just totally kill off the Vulture, Michael Keaton, at the end. They sent him to jail and they sort of left the window open for him to come back in later films, like a comic. I wish that Claw could be a character that could drop in and out like he did in Avengers 2, because I think he's a really fun character. I'm sorry to see him go. Obviously his death served the plot well, and it was a nice twist. And Chadwick Boseman does a really great job here. He's a really, you know, buttoned up, proud, king, and his performance is similar to Chris Evans in the Captain America films, in that he sort of gets overshadowed by Michael B. Jordan and outshined, but he carries the movie very, very well, knowing that he doesn't necessarily have the fun part, which is I really appreciated, because in most of these films, because they want to drive the humor home, Marvel really hammers in that humor, and they want every leading superhero, you know, Ant-Man, Tony Stark, Doctor Strange, to all be wisecracking smartasses. So it is sort of a brave move to take the straight route and be an honorable, compassionate, and strong center to the film, while everybody around you gets to have all the laughs. That's a tough role to take, you know, but I think he does a wonderful job as Black Panther, and he's a great addition to the Marvel team. I thought the film was really good. I think it's awesome and unfortunate at the same time, the ballyhoo that's surrounding the movie, but we'll see if it can carry it towards a second record-breaking weekend at the box office. I hope so. I'm glad people are talking about movies again. I'm glad they're important to the zeitgeist. Black Panther is a solid film. Check it out.